Imagine a world where the devastating war in Ukraine could finally come to an end. That's precisely what high-stakes diplomatic meetings in Florida and Moscow are aiming for, but the path forward is fraught with challenges and potential pitfalls. The Trump administration is actively pushing to broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, setting the stage for critical talks between US officials and Vladimir Putin himself. But here's where it gets controversial. The proposed peace framework has already drawn criticism for potentially favoring Russian interests. This weekend, a high-powered Ukrainian delegation convened in West Palm Beach, Florida, with key Trump administration figures, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. The goal? To refine the details of a proposed peace plan designed to halt the ongoing conflict that began with Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. This meeting takes place at a particularly delicate time for Ukraine. The country continues to bravely resist Russian forces, but internal political pressures are mounting. Just before the Florida summit, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy made a surprising announcement: the resignation of his chief of staff, Andrii Yermak. Yermak was not just any staff member, he was Ukraine's lead negotiator in talks with the United States. His departure raises questions about the stability of Ukraine's negotiating position and the potential impact on the peace process. And this is the part most people miss: the timing is crucial. The announcement came shortly after anti-corruption investigators searched Yermak's home. Zelenskyy's government has been rocked by a scandal involving a staggering $100 million allegedly embezzled from the energy sector through contractor kickbacks. This scandal has created significant domestic pressure on Zelenskyy, potentially weakening his hand in negotiations. It was only a week prior that Secretary Rubio had met with Yermak in Geneva, and both sides described the talks as positive, suggesting progress in developing a revised peace plan. The sudden change in personnel adds a layer of complexity to the already intricate diplomatic landscape. The Ukrainian delegation now includes prominent figures such as Andrii Hnatov, the head of Ukraine's armed forces, Andrii Sybiha, Ukraine's foreign minister, and Rustem Umerov, head of Ukraine's Security Council. This shows the seriousness and multifaceted approach that Ukraine is taking towards the peace negotiations. Much of the focus centers on revisions to a 28-point plan initially proposed by the Trump administration, developed through negotiations between Washington and Moscow. However, this plan has faced criticism for being perceived as leaning too heavily towards Russian demands. A major sticking point for Kyiv was the initial proposal that Ukraine cede the entire eastern region of the Donbas to Russia. The Donbas region has been a focal point of conflict and a symbol of Ukrainian sovereignty. While Trump has since downplayed the plan as a concept or a map needing fine-tuning, its initial provisions included limitations on the size of Ukraine's military, preventing Ukraine from joining NATO, and requiring Ukraine to hold elections within a mere 100 days. Negotiators have hinted that the framework has been modified, but the extent of these alterations remains unclear. What concessions, if any, is Ukraine willing to make for the sake of peace? Trump indicated that Witkoff, and possibly Kushner, would travel to Moscow this week to discuss the plan with Putin. Both Witkoff and Kushner, coming from the real estate world, are known for prioritizing deal-making, a style that sometimes clashes with traditional diplomatic protocols. It's worth noting that this same duo was instrumental in brokering a ceasefire in Gaza with a prior 20-point proposal. Can their unconventional approach yield positive results in this high-stakes situation? Zelenskyy took to social media platform X to state that the Ukrainian delegation would swiftly and substantively work out the steps needed to end the war. In his nightly address, he expressed optimism, stating that the American side was demonstrating a constructive approach, and that in the coming days it is feasible to flesh out the steps to determine how to bring the war to a dignified end. But will Russia reciprocate this constructive approach? Even as these diplomatic efforts unfold, the reality on the ground remains grim. On Saturday, Russian drone and missile attacks in and around Kyiv resulted in casualties and widespread damage. Further attacks overnight into Sunday caused more deaths and injuries, highlighting the ongoing human cost of the conflict. This constant threat of violence underscores the urgency of finding a peaceful resolution. So, here's the question: can the Trump administration successfully broker a peace deal that is both acceptable to Ukraine and addresses the underlying issues fueling the conflict? Is it possible to achieve a lasting peace without compromising Ukraine's sovereignty and security? And perhaps most controversially, should the US be so involved in dictating the terms of a peace agreement between two sovereign nations? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Let's discuss.